Picture this. For 10 long years, two of the ancient world's greatest powers are locked in a brutal, bloody war. The Greeks and the Trojans. It's a conflict of heroes, of gods, fought right under the shadow of the impenetrable walls of Troy.
But here's the thing. After an entire decade of fighting, the Greeks are no closer to victory than they were on day one. Their armies are exhausted, their supplies are gone, and their spirit, well, it's breaking. So the real question becomes, how do you win a war that, by all conventional measures, just can't be won?
The answer wasn't going to be found with more soldiers or more ships. Nope. It would be found in a moment of absolutely brilliant deception. This war wasn't going to be won by brute force. It was going to be won with a bigger and way smarter idea.
Now, to really get why what happened next was so incredible, you first have to understand just how desperate the Greeks were. I mean, just imagine spending a decade of your life camped outside an enemy city with absolutely no end in sight.
10 years. Let that sink in. An entire generation of soldiers knew nothing else but this miserable siege. And every single day, they woke up and saw the walls of Troy, still standing, basically a giant monument to their failure. Morale was at rock bottom.
So Agamemnon, the leader of the Greeks, he finally gets it. More of the same, more attacks, more sieges. It was just going to lead to more death and more failure. Every play in the traditional military rulebook had failed. They needed to throw that book out completely. They needed a big think strategy.
And that's when one of the most cunning minds in all of history steps into the spotlight. Odysseus, the clever king of Ithaca, comes up with a plan so wild, so out there, it was either complete madness or pure genius.
So here's the plan he cooked up. It was a masterpiece of misdirection, really, in 4 parts. First, they'd build a massive wooden horse and pretend it was a sacred offering to the goddess Athena. Second, inside this gift, they'd hide their absolute best warriors. Then, and this is key, the entire Greek army would burn their camps and look like they were sailing home in defeat, a very convincing fake retreat. But the final piece, the most critical piece of the whole puzzle, they would leave one man behind, a single agent whose only job was to sell this entire crazy lie.
And that man's name was Sinan. His role was absolutely vital. You can't overstate this. He wasn't just some spy, he was the linchpin. His whole mission was to manipulate the Trojan leaders, play on their pride, their beliefs, their fears, and convince them to bring the very instrument of their own destruction inside their city. He was what we would call today the operation's social engineer.
Okay, now let's flip the script. Imagine you're a Trojan soldier the next morning. Your scouts come back with impossible news. The Greeks are gone. Their camp is just ashes. And standing there on the beach is this magnificent, enormous wooden horse. What on earth does it mean? Well, as the Trojans are all debating, a priest named Laocoon comes running out, shouting one of the most famous warnings in history. I fear the Greeks, even when they bring gifts. He knew his enemy. He knew this had to be a trick. He even threw a spear at the horse, and the hollow sound it made should have been all the proof they needed.
But just as it seemed like Laocoon's warning might be sinking in, something happens. Something horrifying. From the perfectly calm sea, 2 giant serpents emerge, slithering right towards the shore.
The serpents make a beeline right past everyone else and go straight for Laocoon and his 2 young sons, killing them right there on the beach. To the Trojans, the meaning was instant and it was terrifying. This wasn't just some random animal attack. This was a sign from the gods. They believed the gods were punishing Laocoon for his blasphemy, for daring to attack a sacred offering. And in that one awful moment, Sinan's job got a whole lot easier. The voice of reason was silenced. Fear took over. The debate was over. And so, completely convinced they had won the favor of the gods, the Trojans dragged that colossal horse right through their own gates. In one afternoon, they did what the entire Greek army couldn't do in 10 years. They breached their own defenses.
That night, the city of Troy celebrates. They think the war is over. They've won. But as the city sleeps, the trap is sprung. Odysseus and his men creep out, kill the guards, and throw open the city gates. The Greek fleet, which had just been hiding behind a nearby island, had already returned. A decade of frustration was unleashed in one single, brutal night. The great city of Troy fell.
So the story of the Trojan War might have ended there, but the story of the Trojan horse Well, that was just getting started. This ancient blueprint for deception is, believe it or not, more relevant today than ever. Its name lives on, but it's now being used on a very different kind of battlefield.
And this slide really nails the connection, doesn't it? The ancient threat was a physical horse hiding soldiers. The modern threat is a digital file, like a PDF, hiding malware. The delivery method has changed, yeah, but the core strategy of deception, it is exactly the same.
This is what we now call social engineering, the art of manipulating people to get around security. And the story of Sinon and the horse, it's the original blueprint. It teaches us the single most important lesson in security. Whether it's ancient or modern, it's almost always easier to trick someone into opening the gate for you than it is to break it down yourself.
So why did it work so well? I mean, why did an entire city of battle-hardened people fall for a trick like this? Because the attack was never aimed at their stone walls. It was aimed right at their minds. The Greeks, whether they knew it or not, were exploiting powerful and timeless principles of human psychology.
Think about how they basically weaponized psychology. They used authority, not the authority of a king, but of the gods themselves. Those sea serpents acted as an absolute divine judgment against anyone who doubted the horse. They also exploited reciprocation. See, by calling the horse a gift to a goddess, rejecting it would feel like a huge insult. It created a sense of obligation. And finally, they used social proof. Once the crowd, totally swayed by fear and faith, decided the horse was a good thing, it became almost impossible for any individual to stand up and disagree. The herd mentality just took over.
So in the end, Troy's legendary walls were never the real problem. Their greatest vulnerability was something we all share, our own predictable human nature. The Greeks just built a gift perfectly designed to target the Trojans' trust, their fear, and their faith. Which kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our world of digital gifts and constant phishing emails, what seemingly harmless things are you willing to wheel inside your own walls? What's your Trojan horse?